Good evening, friends. We are again with our Kritya Talk series. Today we have a very interesting talk with Klaus Ankersen, who is a poet who writes prose also, non-fiction, translation, and he is in literary activism. He works in many fields. He has 15 books and about in literature, and he has traveled almost 20 countries all over the world. So the traveling is the most important thing to learn anything. So that is, I feel that he is a learned man. Danish is working in poetry, spirituality, language, and many other things. What is the interesting thing is that he came to India many times, like a Sangam House Fellowship and Cholamandal studio and other many and Kala Ghoda, Delhi Art Festival, etc. And he has written poetry on his visit and how he has seen the other country, India, from his side as a poet from Denmark. So we welcome to class Ankersen, and again in India, of course, by these channels only. So welcome, class. Very interesting.
Thank you, Rati.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to join this Kritya talk. Kritya has a special significance for me because I almost went to the 2010 Kritya festival in Nagpur, when it was in Nagpur this year. But unfortunately, just when I was going, I was in Cholamandal at the time in the artist village south of Chennai or Madras. And just as I was about to pack my suitcase and take off for the airport and go to Nagpur to join the festival, unfortunately, some private urgent matters made it impossible for me. And now, 21 years later, or 12 years later, 11, 12 years later, here we are. So I'm very happy to join you in this talk, Rati.
Thank you, and welcome again. You were there in Kritya 2021 also, and your presentation was very interesting and very wonderful. So, I have many questions to you. One is that first, I want you to tell about yourself, your writing journey, your poetry journey, and then I will have some curiosity about your work, and we will continue. So first, you give a small introduction from your side, that how you write, why did you write, and how you started.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I have basically written most of my life, at least since I was a teenager, and I didn't get my official debut. I didn't publish my first book until 2003, which is almost 18 years ago now. So since I've published 15 books, many of them collections of poetry, but also prose and experimental prose. I did hybrids and worked with sort of like site-specific poetry in many forms, as visual art, as activism, as movie-driven or sound-driven, and I did an awful lot of spoken word poetry. I know that this is very popular or gaining popularity in India these years, which is a great pleasure for me. I've been doing that also since the beginning of this millennia, which has given me a lot of good things. So what can I say? I'm originally trained as an anthropologist, and I guess that this sort of basic curiosity and basic sort of field work of the anthropologist, where you are in the same time participating and also observing, I have sort of brought that with me into poetry, or brought the anthropology into poetry, or poetry into the anthropology, or vice versa. I don't know, but I guess actually it's the same field of of observation, and the same field of themes that I operate in. I just have a different means of expression now, which is poetry. So perhaps instead of writing an essay or a monograph, I will write a collection of poetry, or a site-specific poem or something like that, to that effect. Um, but then again, I feel that really that intention and the story you want to tell should come before the form, actually. So the form should sort of yield to intention, or should be shaped according to that intention. So in that way, I'm also very interested in experimenting with with poetic expressions and poetic hybrids, and what poetry can actually do. And I think that for me, one of the most wonderful things about poetry is that more than, perhaps more than any other literary expression, it really facilitates the meeting. Uh, the meeting is a very important constant in my literary activity, or my writing. The meeting between not only between the writer and the world, but also between the reader and the writer, and the reader and the world, as an abstract and as a phenomenological thing alike. And poetry are capable of capturing these situations, or this here and now field of the present, perhaps better than any other literary expression. And I think perhaps this is part of the reason why I'm so fond of poetry. I can't really.
Okay. I forgotten to unmute myself. I feel that because I remember that we were communicating after 2010, and then you planned to come in 2011, and then something happened, and last moment you could not come. And after that, I think we could not keep in touch, but you were, but in 2020 first you came. But when I was watching, or yeah, when I was reading your biodata is very short, you have given three things uh, attract my attention. One, you are activist in a literature, a kind of activist. Huh? So, what does it mean? First, you explain this, then we will go. What is your activism in literature?
I think working actively to to bring poetry where it has not usually been, as form, but also in the sort of placement of poetry. For instance, in the public sphere, where you have so many signals and messages, usually of a commercial order, competing for people's attention. To bring poetry there, or to bring poetry to the street, in a supermarket, or in a bus where people are driving. That kind of literary activism, I think, is very necessary, and and also very, especially now in these days, very necessary. And that is why the advent of spoken word popularity in India makes me so happy, because it is a great instrument of democratization, and it is a great instrument of making your voice be heard, and also giving voice to the voiceless. And I think this is very, very necessary in these years, especially because the youth uh, really deserve to have much more say than they do in the sort of classic political hierarchic sort of stratospheric organization of things. So in that way, I think that that spoken word is one of the things that I'm working on furthering, and it's great that it's really happening in India, because I know that it's really on the rise in India, and that's a very good thing.
Yeah. No, but my experience is that in Europe it is happening. In Europe, it is happening that people are going to railway stations, to airport, and many places. Like I Norway also, I have seen my friend Ordway's poems were there on the airport, and some. But in India, it is not happening. India actually, most of the festival you find that there is a stage, and then people are coming there reading their poem over mic and going back, and that is how, because you might have seen the English poetry readings mostly, but in the native languages it is happening. And this is the difficulty to reach people. And that is how, in the recent time, in a present time, the intellectuals are totally cut from society. It's almost like a culture revolution at that time where the poets and intellectuals were thrown out. Here also, the same thing happening. So, this is because we are this is our mistake that we are not going to them. And but Kritya has done for two festivals in 2015 for 15 and 16 17 festival. We have done that. We have gone to old age home, to the hospitals, even to prison, and it is very not easy because to get permission and so much official work and so much things you have to do. The management is like a tough job there. But that is how most of the poets who come to Kritya are happy, satisfied, because they gain, they should get there. I have seen that it is happening in a Madeleine Poetry Festival, it is happening in Canada, it is happening in Europe, many countries, that we are going to the common people. So this is the activism which we need to reach to common people, and that's your saying. Another thing, okay, let us see that. What is your experience in India as a poet? I am asking not to praise India to make us happy. Your very sharp uh, your observations and how you feel.
I think first of all, I can it's been a very long sort of journey also with my sort of expressions of India. In the beginning, I had no desire of going to India. I it wasn't on my wish list, and I didn't really want to go. I heard before going to India for the first time in 2009. I heard a lot of stories from friends that had traveled, particularly in the 80s, to the Indian metropolises, and they could tell me of the poverty and the misery, and I didn't feel like going to experience that. So what happened was I was I was offered a residency in at Sangam House. That at that time it is an Indian residency for Indian and for international poets that at that time were based in the Adi Shakti Theatre Company outside of Pondicherry, south of Chennai in Tamil Nadu. And I was offered this residency, and I didn't apply for it. I applied for another one, but I didn't get that one. So they offered me this one, the Danish Art Council. And as the good Protestant middle class boy that I am, I said, yes, please. And I was very nervous because I didn't want to go. I was very anxious, and I had these visions that I wasn't going to come back from India. So I was very nervous when I when I landed in Chennai airport in the middle of the night, and then the most fantastic thing happened. The doors opened, and in came this wall of very hot air from outside, and all these faces were standing there looking into. All the taxi drivers were looking to pick up with the signs and everything. And at that particular moment, I almost remembered coming home. It felt like I belonged there, like I was from there. And this feeling sort of continued all the way on the taxi trip through the night, going to the jungle outside of Pondicherry. It was like everything was welcoming me. Like the crows were saying, "Welcome, Klaus, Klaus, Klaus," and the cows and the goats and everything. So that was the beginning, and since then it sort of it changed. The first time in India for me was the miracle factory, the magical circus, the fantastic, colorful, exotic, more than exotic, incredibly exotic India, right? And then the second time, which was the following year, where I was had a residency in Cholamandal, south of Chennai, in the artist village there. That was different. That is where Mother India showed me Kali, the dark side of India, the death, the loneliness, the gruesomeness, the lack of compassion, the utter cold, dark blackness of Kali. I saw that there. I met that there. I realized that this was also a real part of where I was. And then the year after that, again, the prism of Mother India turned slightly and showed me yet another facet of herself, which I guess was indifference. And after indifference came acceptance. And then after visiting India, working there, living there 5 or 6 or 7 times, it occurred to me that all that which I thought was so exotic in the beginning had become normal for me. It was completely normal for me to drive a scooter in a road and be aware of, oh, there's an elephant coming there, and there's a truck, and there's all kinds of things that can happen in Indian traffic. It had become my normal part of my normal experience. And so it is an ongoing journey, I think, and I look forward to continue it, because I just started. These 10, 11 years is just the beginning for me. So I hope to continue that for many years to come, on with the good and with the not so good sort of experiences.
Yeah, this is what I always feel, that people, because when I was going out, and that it was India, and that we love it. So I said that, uh, are you sure that you love it? Because sometimes you may come to India to see, like we go to uh, zoo, to see the zoo.
Mm.
Yes, you may come, and because it's a different part. So are you sure that you really love? Because this is a very different experience when people from your country come to India. Same thing happened to us also. So this is one thing. Second thing is that when you come to India, everything you say that is different. People say that it is like when they come to Kerala, they say it is too much poverty. I said, no, it is not poverty. They are very rich, only their dress code is like this. The dress code is that they are using the white, what you say, that mundu means like dhoti, and the white shirt. But they are, they have food and they have everything. So that is their that dress code, and you feel that they are very poor. One thing. Second thing, because it is too populated, so and of course it is too populated, so it is less clean. Uh, uh, and I have seen in my lifetime, from my childhood, that how the cities are getting dirtier and dirtier. And these dirty things, like in Kerala, I'm sure that I tell you that 15 years, 20 years back, when the plastic has started, before that, it was super clean city because people know how to use their, because they have gardens and how to use their um, wastage in the garden. But plastic has made the progress has made India dirty,
Yeah.
because I remember the trains in my childhood. We have traveled in the trains, the coal trains, but they were not dirty because one thing, they were slow, and then they were not so. One thing, they were slow, and uh, actually the space was more. So this happened to people. But my third worry is that people come to India for artificial spirituality. Artificial spirituality, I'm sorry to say, because I belong to this area. I know what is spirituality according to Indian norms, not according to English Plato or their English philosophers or Western philosophers. It is called Adhyatma. Means Adhi, inside, Atma, inside you. So when you go inward, then it is called is adhyatma, and that is spirituality. But because in a 20, 30 years back, because from the Osho, these people learned that this spirituality can be sold. It is the best business. So the white cream is coming to buy this business propaganda or the ready-made platter. That is my experience. So it happened to my friend who was not no more, but first he said, love to come to India. I love in spirituality. I said, what do you mean by spirituality? I thought he will take the name of some Babas or Sadhu or something. Then he said that, no, I read this book and I read this book. Of course, if you read book, if you find in the books, in the Upanishads and all, then you are in search of spirituality. Or if you go to temples, or if you go to people or common people, as one of my friends from Vienna told me, that what I love in India is that any poor person will be laughing, smiling, which is not possible in my country. People are so straight. Their face are very straight. They forgotten to smile. But India, even though they are asking, begging on the roadside, because you know that in India the highest rich people are also there. The middle class is growing very well compared to European countries. But yes,
Hmm.
we have many poor people, but still they are happy. They are not complaining, and that is the spirituality he liked. So there are three, four kind of spirituality. So I want to know, what is your spirituality when you talk about spirituality, and did you connect with India, or if you have developed yourself?
Mm, 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 mm. I was well. It's a very good question. I thank you for this question because I think also this is perhaps spirituality has always been commercialized, but I think decade, uh, every new decade proves another. It's like another kind. Each decade has its own kind of commercializing the spiritual or spirituality. Um, for me, I've been very interested in self transformation and what you can call magic, self transformational work in the hermetist sort of way from when I was a teenager, basically. And I have been also practicing this since I was a teenager. And there's two very interesting uh, sort of um, points or anecdotes connected to this and India, because the first of all, I grew up in a big forest and this forest is supposed to be sort of like a magical forest where it attracts a lot of sort of practitioners. Also, a lot of people go here to commit suicide. There's a lot of energy in this forest. I grew up in this forest, and somehow the veil between the worlds are a little bit thinner here. So you can sense things if you're a sensible person. You can sense things and see things from the other side, and I have always done that. So with this background, I'm coming to India for the first time without having done any research at all about where I'm actually going because I didn't want to go. So I land in Adishakti outside of Pondicherry. And and I was because I was so afraid of India that India was gonna be the end of me, right? I didn't dare to go outside the compound of the theater company, Adishakti. I had to stay inside. And and it took me like 2 3 weeks before I ventured outside slowly. But in the first 3 weeks I was inside peering out like a very angsty little animal, like a little rodent peering out, and but I was running for fitness at that time, so I had to do something with my body. So I found that in the back of the theater, in the theater compound, they have a big theater building, and in the back of this was a green room, and in the green room was a treadmill. And I was very happy to find a treadmill. I could finally exercise without going into the dangerous India with the snakes and the elephants and the dangerous Indian people. So I would start to jog on the treadmill. And on the wall in front of the treadmill was two pictures, two photos in frames. And and it was like a photo of an old man and of an old woman, and I called them mother and father just because they looked like old grandparents. I called them mother and father, and somebody put fresh flowers on the pictures, which I thought was very strange. Why would you put old flowers on these old photographs hanging in that back room? But I got on the treadmill and started to jog, and within 5 minutes, something very odd happened. The persons in the pictures came out of the pictures and and took me on a sort of spirit trip. It took me out of my body somewhere else. And after 20 minutes, 25 minutes, whoop, I was back on the treadmill, taking notes. I took my pen and paper with me, taking notes. I had had my first session with the father and the mother, and these two persons turned out to be Mira Alfasa, the mother, and Sri Aurobindo Ghose, uh, which I then learned was big gurus exactly in this place. I had no idea. So I had a very long sort of row of sessions with the mother and Sri Aurobindo on that treadmill. So this was a very tangible sort of spiritual experience that I had the first time I came to India. I had other experiences since then, uh, of different natures, but this was sort of the first sort of very practical sort of psychic interaction I had with Indian sort of entities and energies. That was the first time, and it made a big impression on me, and still they're walking with me still to this day. It's very beautiful. Oh, sound.
It could be a great experience because Aurobindo was a great philosopher and he was not in the line which we see the modern. In fact, he wanted to show to the West that what is the Indian philosophy, because before that people were just thinking about India, that it is a magic, an elephant, and yes. But he has recreated and studied and explained the Atma and spirituality in his own way. It could be different. I personally, I can be, I cannot accept his all ideas as a as a, what you say that, because I also work in this, but as a technical thinking, I may not accept him, but he has done a wonderful work because he showed to West that what is the Indian philosophy, and in a very, very, very right way. Moreover, he has changed that culture of that Puducherry in a complete way because it is not European city, it is pure Indian, but Westerns come to Puducherry and live in an Indian way. So this is fantastic. His work was fantastic because he was doing out of passion. Uh, so this is your experience, and this is a very, very spiritual experience, but that everyone can't have. You have that is. Otherwise, when I talk to some women who were coming to this and that place, I said, "What do you like?" He said, "Oh, there are morning and evening. There are aartis, so beautiful." I said, "That is a ritual, and rituals are always beautiful. Rituals are always to attract people. It is to so that they come there and they follow those rituals. Rituals are not a spirituality. So yes, of course, Aurobindo has worked very in a very deep in this direction. His own ideas were there. We have more scholars also like Aurobindo, and they have worked very hard. And it is good that you had a very good communication with Aurobindo. And so, what is your poetry in spirituality? Can you read one or two, and can you talk about them?
Hmm. Let's see. I feel like I would. I published two books in India. I don't know if you can see them here. This was the first one. It is from 2018. Grab Your Heart and Follow Me, and this was published by Poetry Wala in
Hemant,
Mumbai.
Hemant.
Yeah, Hemant and Shmuti. Yes, and this is the second one. It's called River of Man, and this is from last summer from a small publisher in Delhi called Red River,
They
from
both are
Divya Jyoti
they're,
Sharma.
they both are doing very good.
And that's I'm very happy about. They're two very different collections. A lot of poems in each place. In each book is actually written in India. Um, Let me see what I can find. Um, This actually, I want to change the subject a little bit and read this poem from this first collection called "Grab Your Heart and Follow Me," which has to do with acceptance and this and maybe indifference, and this is sort of dealing with the predicament of the middle class, also the Indian middle class, and it's called "The Poor." It's a very short. I have to ignore the old man with the wrist-thin legs and the little girl selling used school books. Those docile eyes, too little food and too much pollution. I have to ignore lest my heart breaks, for I cannot help them, save them, even less. So I turn the blind eye to the blind and walk away to a peaceful oasis, eat organic slow food from a white table delicately made of human bone. I listen to the birds saluting the sunset. Short poem.
This is, I must say that very, very biting poetry and beautiful. I like it because you have expressed in a very small, a very less words to these middle class people. Thank you very much. Next, please.
Thank you, thank you. This actually, and it's something that I think for me it has taken me a long time to get used to this that that you have to sort of pretend that you don't see it. I still think it's very difficult, and sometimes I can't really do it. Let me see if I can find this one also. Let's see. I think more poems about that is in my last book, River of Man. Oh, the hunger. That's another thing. That's another thing that I think when you have been sufficiently to India, you will start to notice this. There is a hunger everywhere, and not particularly a hunger for food, but a hunger for advancement, for movement, for shifting something for something else, for advancement, maybe you can say. So this one is also very short. It's just called So Hungry. This is from the new book, River of Man. Everywhere youth, hungry to belong, eager to get in, the cages looking so beautiful and glossy from outside, like any old secret, spiky and moldy on the inside, people desperate to escape, like entering a utopian dream only for the few. Um,
Actually, this
I
is
think this.
very true, very true. The the kind of hunger is here in India and any growing country is very different from European countries which are almost grown. So,
Very, very different. I think I feel like reading a little bit more from this last um, this last book. Um, this is also about this. This is the same greed, but this is the about the greed uh, where it sort of coincides with joy and joie de vivre, which also is, as you say yourself, so abundant in India. No matter if you are rich or poor, probably uh, more in the extremes. It's just called "Give Me More." Give me more coconut water, sweet pan, onion, ravadosa, papaya, milky coffee, black coffee, sugar cane juice, pani puri, and also more pani puri. Give me more of those jaggery fried bitter gourd slices. Give me more idli, more sambar, and give me more of that mint and coconut chutney. Give me tender coconut water and a large old monk. Top it off with soda water only and hand me another one. That fried fish, that curry, and then one more of those, I like so much, like you.
oh, you you are writing very good poems in India actually, and you understood the people, the psychology of people. And give me more. It's fantastic poem, uh, and
Thank you.
yeah, that people have to learn this. That give me more should uh, how to control because like Isa Vasupnishat is saying that tena tyaktena bhunjita means you should eat with sacrifice. You should not eat more with the sacrifice only. You should eat. So we belong to that country, but unfortunately, we are following the American uh, standards, and that is why we are asking you more. Yeah, fantastic. You please read more poems. Your poems are fantastic.
Okay, I would love to find another one about. Oh, maybe about this is very also about the conjunction of resources with something else. This is about being white in India. It's called Fair Share. My skin embodies the double bind of post-colonialism. I get special treatment and pay extra. The first I never tire of, and the second gets to me. After a few months, I realize everything is shared here except money. Lakshmi is kept in a small golden cage close to people's hearts, her fleeting nature too unruly.
I must say that you
And
have learned the India very well. You have you have pick point in point the places where you should pick your pen or where you use your pen. So fantastic, fantastic.
thank you. Should we have a little? Could I read? I think I would want to read one more, which is also about the contrast between the East and the West in this matter, which I think is it's sort of like a funny, but also a little bit serious poem. It's called "That Love Shit."
Hmm.
Opposites attract. Deep inside the wheel of the East, matters of the heart are private. Intimacy is sacred and must be kept from the prying eyes of strangers. In the star of the West, it must be publicly shared to be real sustainable. Inversely proportionate are the matters of the bowels. In the East, it is freely shared, a cleansing on display. In the West, it's a private matter to be kept behind closed doors and dealt with in silence. Perhaps these are simply different aspects of the same. One woman's filth is the other's treasure, like the bougainvillea or the lotus, reaching from earth towards heaven, keeping them forever apart as two sides of the same coin, the only one there is. Love and shit, shitty love, lovely shit, shit and love.
Beautiful. Very nice. Can you read some your spiritual poetry which you have written, not on India, your spiritual poetry?
Oh, let's see. Let's see if I can find someone. I think actually this one is very I don't know if you would say it's spiritual, but I think it is something that it is some sort of spiritual sort of wisdom that we all sort of know in our bones, but don't really want to see. It's called the walk. They they should have told us we would walk alone. They could have let us in on the secret that we are animals and each our own. But they kept it a cabal that parents are people too, shrouded in youth, revealed after four turns in the labyrinth of crossroads. We walk their walk, two-legged cephalopods doomed to keep discovering the same, walking alone. They should have told us we would they should have told us they would take their leave. They could have told us we would be abandoned.
Oh, uh, these are the fantastic poetry class, and I'm very happy to hear them. And I must say that you have a very sharp eye, and
Thank you.
that is how you could bring. It is not a like a simple phrase poetry, or you could find out the weakness of human and weakness of man, and same time the weakness which was inside you, that which took you to some spiritual conversation with a guru. So, what do you want to talk more? We have a lot of time now, 15 minutes more. So, do you want to talk more?
Okay. Yes, I yeah, but basically I really miss going back to India. I really miss it. because I was supposed to go last summer to celebrate and to help publishing this little baby here and to go on tour with it and share it with the readers and meet the youth of India. I'm so enthralled with that energy that is there, and this this it's a tsunami of energy, basically a tsunami of life that is just blooming in your face, and it's beautiful to interact with this. And so I really sort of look forward to perhaps going back and to continue this journey with India and also sort of bringing India to Denmark. I'm working on that also. Earlier I have been doing a series of interviews with Indian poets in a Danish media that I write for called Point of View International. And I just last month this one was published, which is Tishani Doshi's third collection of poetry in the Indian poet Tishani Doshi's third collection that I translated into the Danish, and this was such a big pleasure for me and privilege to be able to give back like this a tiny bit of what I think I received. And to bring also the interaction the other way, to bring some piece of Indian mindset to the Danish readership and to the Danish public. So
Translation is the best way to uh, understand a country. And another thing that translation is also necessary if you translate the language poets, because they belong to root most of the time. So I don't say that English poets are not belonging to root. They are writing very good, but of course, they, as you say, that they come to from the upper class, which is you mentioned. But there are many people like in Malayalam also. They are fishermen, and they are. I have invited them to Kritya, and they belong to such categories. What you say that the fourth, we have class systems, so the other categories. Moreover, we have the tribal poetry, which should be translated into other language to understand their culture and their feeling, because tribal philosophy is again a best philosophy in the world, because they are very close to nature, which is going. We are actually destroying very fast, because all the tribals are becoming the city people. In Kerala, it happened almost that there are no villages, all cities. So that language poets are very important if you translate them, and if you have any project in future, you can communicate with me. I will give you a translation of those poets into English, and you can have uh, more like you can see the Bengali poets from the northeast, from Kashmir, from so they are tackling their problems. They are tackling. They are talking about their countries, their personal problems. But all personal problems make India. So I congratulate your translation work. But if you want to do a collection, which will be very good to understand India.
yeah,
Uh,
we
And
will let's continue to think about that. It's a very good idea. I really appreciate that idea, and I agree with you, of course, that many more poets and writers from different regional Indian languages should be translated and shared and basically from all languages, particularly since languages are dying every day,
yeah,
and each language is a particular key to a certain position vis-a-vis the world that is unique. Which is why every one of us must be very sad that we don't master all the languages in the world, because that would be the ultimate key to understanding ourselves and each other, and everything, nature, the animals, the insects, the gods. Um, so so I think that's a very, very, very nice project and a very good idea, to try and do a little
Uh,
bit of that.
Fortunately, now the English poets are also write in Indian poetry. That is good because there was a time when they were thinking in a Western way, but now the contemporary Indian poets are writing Indian poetry. I understand, but it's still going to the main rooted. Of course, if translation will be very difficult, but for so those people, because you are translating in a third language, because they have
Hmm. Hmm.
already translated into English and then you are translating into third language. But if you are interested, I will help you in this project. I will introduce to people who can make this project. That is good, and I wish that you do such projects and you be like you are saying that you're activism. So activism, let us make, because this is when I said that this is very difficult time for the poetry, or we say the time for this is the time when there is no poetry. People make fun of me because they feel that every day you are finding poetry in the Facebook. Every time you find a poet putting that my poetry has published in such and such journal. Every time we get that something is happening and then people reading poetry, but that is not the idea. Thus these poetry are reaching to the people whom you're writing. For example, when there was a lockdown last year at same time, people were walking on the road. Many poets have written on their walk. It is as a like a great uh, uh, march of Mao. It happened a great march of poor people in India and many places, even in South of America and many places. But did they read these poems? Did they gain anything by these poetry? We have just added these poetry as a historical events if they remain, if they are written in a proper manner. That's all. So uh, that's why I feel that this is the time without poetry. And that is why Kritya is also doing this job, uh, though it is very difficult because Kritya now I am alone running and then it is difficult for me sometimes. But I try to connect poets, artists, translators, uh, filmmakers, everywhere, one in this stage, so that you can come and communicate and you can meet more people. So, thank you, class. If you have last few words to say, you can say, please. No. Thank
Just
you.
that I've been happy. I've been happy to have this conversation with you, Rati, and I look forward to more cooperation and look forward to us meeting in person in India, hopefully soon.
You're welcome. You're welcome to my home. Many poets come and live with me in my home. So my home is
Mhm.
has a one room for the poets guest only. So, but of course, if you understand, you learn the Indian way of living, simple middle class. So my home is always open for you. Uh,
Thank you.
my again, I want to say that please communicate with the Indian poets, or we should communicate all the poets, all the word poets, and I will be happy when if you introduce modern or young Danish poets to Kritya to understand their poetry performance. So you are welcome in Kritya. So 4 or 5, 6 modern, because this is the best thing in this pandemic, that we can connect easily, better way, and in a cheap manner, not spending much money. So and it will be in history also because it will be there in a in a YouTube. This will also be in YouTube. I will give you the link. You can share to your friends. So you are welcome with your Danish poets, and I think some poets, if they are interested, they will love to translate poetry, and your poetry is also very good. They will love to translate into Hindi or Malayalam and other languages, because that is also very important. Uh, yes, your book is published in English. I use English as a medium in my Kritya because I wanted to communicate. But I know that the most of the audience who were here, they are writing in Hindi because they are better in their mother tongue. So, yes, he is saying that it is always better to take the poetry of the lower caste or the tribal people, uh, um, translated into other languages of the world, and that is will be helpful in the to grow the world literature. So, thank you very much. To
Thank
join us,
you.
and I hope this is this is only starting. 2011 we could not meet, but last time you presented your poetry, but we could not communicate. I was also very busy at that time, but I'm happy to communicate with you, Klaus. You are fantastic poet. You are fantastic. Your eyesight, your pen is strong, and your what you say that we in Hindi we say the drishti. You know where to look. So that is very strong. So congratulations. Thanks a lot.
Thank you,
Thanks a
Rati.
lot.
Thank you. Thank you
So
all.
thanks to our guest, our friends who came here. Most of them, even people don't like the SB board is there. Muhsina Arda is from Turkey. Shiva is Ranawaz are there. So there are many.